All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 34 of my GEMP game review series. I'm your host, Chris Gogolin. Happy New Year, everybody. It's the first stream of 2019. 34 episodes in. Wow, hard to believe I've been doing this for almost a full year now. But very excited to be back here in the new year, getting back with our show. And of course, 5 minutes before my show is set to start here, the Players Committee releases the PDF First Set 10, which everyone has been eagerly awaiting. So bear with me for just a second here while I finish downloading all of it, and then we can actually scroll through it and take a look. Of course, obviously, believe that these are always the most accurate versions and everything has been proofed and correct. Every once in a while, there's a typo or something like that gets caught. So don't start hitting print on your printers just yet. Wait about 24 hours or so. Make sure that everything was written out as intended. There weren't any typos that got overlooked or anything before you start printing them all out. But we've got the PDF here. We're going to take a couple, obviously got to wait for it to finish loading. Quite a few new cards to go through. I was just going to do it off the spoiler list. But yeah, we've got some new cards to look at, and of course with set 10, coming out at the Endor Grand Prix is just about 12 days away. Yeah, give or take. It's 2 weeks from now. Saturday the 19th is the main event in Seattle, Washington. So if you're anywhere in the Northwest and you haven't heard about this event yet or haven't decided whether or not you want to go, highly recommend going. Always a great time out there. Very disappointed that I will not be able to attend this year, but the set 10 cards are legal. It's been a topic of many discussion threads on the forum for the last 3 weeks. Looks like everyone has finally resolved all their ill feelings toward each other and is moving forward with the just happiness that is set 10. So let's go full screen on this. So you've got you've got some random support guys, support characters. You've got a new matching pilot, Commander Brandi for the Judicator. You've got a new gun raid that helps out. There's little support guys that sort of give certain decks a little boost. And then you've got your what I call the more cornerstone cards, keystone, whatever you wanna. They are the foundation upon which new decks are built that typically have a dramatic impact on the meta. Route tier operations being one of them that everyone has been discussing for several days now. And obviously there are some big differences that will dictate a lot how this plays out. The virtual route tier operations objective does not have nearly the limitations on the front side that the original version does in terms of adding +2 to deploy cost of rebels and things like that. What used to be its nemesis were immunity Jedi. You'd have Mace, you'd have Qui-Gon, you'd have Yoda, and some other guys just all running around Raltier, and they were all completely immune because they also got around the deployment cost bonuses that like Luke and Obi didn't have the benefit of. They would they'd cost way too much. But now with Like My Father setting a hard cap at 6 and Immunity Jedi getting some help with another card in this set being Jedi Business, I don't think Route Tier Operations is going to be quite as problematic as it once was. It also has a terrible matchup, I would believe, in QMC because the main purpose of the Route Tier Operations objective is to flip your objective. And on the flip side here, see if we can, you see it makes their force drains -1 at non-route tier locations. So when they're hiding over on their sites, all their drains are -1. Except like Quiet Mining Colony says, force drains can't be modified. Rebel Strike Team has the same text, but that objective just isn't quite as good. I mean, it's got some benefits of it. Typically, that's a deck that once you blow up the bunker, it doesn't really do a whole lot afterwards. But we're curious to see. I'm sure people will experiment with plenty of versions of Route Tier Operations, and I think it's going to be a Tier 2 deck at best. I wouldn't put too much stock in it, like meta warping things. I don't think it's nearly as strong as it's been in previous Legacy versions. Doesn't have nearly the same support cards or support characters, so not too concerned about the impact this is going to have right out of the box. Definitely going to be one of those decks. I think it takes a real while, possibly another set or two, to get additional helper cards before it becomes one of those top decks that you see being played frequently. It uses a lot of the same characters as Imperial Entanglements, and quite frankly, Entanglements sets up a lot faster. So, it doesn't quite, it has the ability to play Occupation and do things like that, troopers everywhere. So I don't necessarily see Route Tier Operations replacing that. Let's see if page 2 is done loading here. Scroll right past. There we go. So page 2, you get Mustafar, which is another cornerstone card you can build the deck around. Because you can use a force to download a Mustafar site. Well, not really any other Mustafar sites right now except for Vader's Castle, which you'd probably do like a combat readiness, and you'd start the system and the castle, and then you can use the castle and deploy Vader, and then send Vader out wherever you want. You get a new Blizzard Walker, a Marquand, which kind of helps out with some Hoth decks. There's a limitation in terms of readily available Blizzard Walkers. Otherwise, you have to start using the generic like Imperial Walkers or Dune Walkers that have permanent pilots and no immunity to attrition really, or you have to use just the Hoth ones that are blank and don't have any pilots in them, and then you're struggling to find 4 ability to get inside them to make them work. So having another ability to immune to less than 4 walker that can add a pilot now gives you a couple of walkers to work with, so that should certainly help Darkseid in that aspect. And that's really it for Darkseid. Darkseid did not get all that many cards in this set. New grabber, some new device, goofy cards. You've got some stuff here with droids and hatred cards. They're decent little cards that will help fill out or fill in a hole in an existing deck, but not anything that's going to completely rebuild the deck around. Same thing with Jabba Space Cruiser, just having another ship. Not a whole lot else that it's going to really be able to. Darkseid was never really hurting for options. Neither is Lightside, really, to be honest. But Darkseid has had a great deck diversity pretty much since the reset, and that has continued, where it's got 7 or 8 strong decks that play a wide variety of cards and characters, not just the same cookie cutter mains type decks. You can build 5 or 6 different Darkseid decks, and other than just like a few interrupts and things like that, there's not a lot of overlap between them. I mean, you can play, Entanglements and Map and, Hunt Down and Court and Black Sun, and, you've got very few cards between all of those decks that overlap. Some type of space deck, set your course, or TTO or something, or deal, and you can have all those decks pretty much built at the same time without a large lot of overlap, a lot of filler cards. But then Lightside gets a lot of help. People have been asking for more deck diversity for Lightside, so we try and get away from playing just Throne Room Hitco as the primary deck options. Some people argue that Throne Room Hitco is a direct response to all of like Black Sun and things like that. And other people will say everyone's been playing Throne Room Hitco for 2 years, so I don't really think it's just related to Black Sun. But it's the easiest deck to play for sure, Throne Room and Hitco for Lightside, because there's not as many in-game moves. It's just a lot of power cards. Your other decks like QMC, like Old Allies, like No Idea, require a bit more finesse, and there's a lot more in-game decisions going on, and as a result, those can be a lot more tiring and a lot more tedious to play, especially during 8-game tournaments. So you'll see a lot of players shy away from them just because of decision fatigue, as we like to call it. But yeah, the images look great on these cards so far. It's a great image here on the silencer, the systems and stuff. We're going to keep scrolling through, checking stuff out. So we've got a couple new clone troopers. Obviously, that'll help out. The new General Kenobi, who kind of slots into WAP, having a couple other clones to go with Rex and Cody and those kind of guys, and a non-unique clone trooper that could certainly, kind of become a new character package. Then you get some new Jedi here. You got Plo Koon. You've got Kit Fisto. That's a great image on Luke. That's pretty well done there. Um, you get Ezra in his suit. He's got his little biker helmet on. I guess he's still in spy mode. So, yeah, Plo Koon, another Episode 1 icon Jedi, but, focuses a little bit more on kind of space stuff. Kit Fisto, again, has got some great, Episode 1 Jedi synergy, so it's more characters to kind of fill out WAP or hyperdrive type decks. And what a coincidence, because those decks kind of get a big boost in this set. Jedi Business is the card we were talking about earlier. I really wish I could... Hang on. Let me try and zoom in just a little more, because I feel like that's just a little... Let me do this. Let's do this. Let's zoom in a little bit better. There we go. Now we can actually read the text a little better and see all these great new images that we've got. Big thanks to the proofing team, the graphics team, the design and development team for all the work, the playtesting team for all the work that they've done, putting all the effort into fine-tuning the game text on these cards, getting the wording right so there's no loopholes, getting the images right, combining everything all together, and getting it released here for us to start the new year. Pretty great stuff. Jedi Business is the card we were just starting to talk about. Non-Episode 1 Jedi are lost, so it really forces you to play Episode 1 Jedi to get all of the tricks and benefits of it. And now you've got a couple new Episode 1 Jedi to work with it. Mace becoming completely immune to attrition. So now light side picks up a third character who could be completely immune. Situationally, you wouldn't probably be, could be with Anakin, unlikely to be with Anakin. Vader's very more likely though. And then once per turn, you can choose to either download an Episode 1 lightsaber, or once per game, you can go get one of these locations. So you can't get a saber and a location in the same turn, and this location pull is only once per turn. It's a little tricky the way that's worded, but I believe that's what they're going for there with that one. But this certainly slots into has potential for WAP decks, hyperdrive decks. There used to be an old deck that started the Jedi Council Chamber, and then first turn you would pull the nightclub, and then you'd pull Yoda from the Jedi Council Chamber, and then Yoda would just walk over. Yoda used to have a lightsaber too, so that made it a little bit more appealing. You would just, Yoda would just slide over turn 1 with a lightsaber, and then he's setting up a drain for 3 and really put a lot of early pressure on your opponent. I don't quite have all the cards to kind of rebuild something like that, but at least not at that pace. But you could kind of set up something to do that in general, and just sort of play off of Coruscant, lose the Force. And this other one, Ancient Watering Hole, is another one of those cornerstone kind of cards in this set. You look at this and you say Maz and your rep are immune to attrition. Well, you've got alien characters, your force drains are +1, and your total battle destiny is +1. It's 2 if Maz or your rep is in the battle. Well, reps are only part of Agents of the Court. Agents of the Court, not a very strong deck, and Maz doesn't exist yet. So what's really the big deal with this card? It's another kind of throwback to a legacy card, Elor's Madoc, which was used very well in Quiet Mining Colony. And when you think about most light side QMC builds, they already have 5 to 6 different aliens in there already. So this could easily slot in, and then while you've got all those different aliens on Cloud City, you've got Pookamer adding 1 to your drains already, and now this adding 1 more. Now suddenly you're draining for 3 at all your Cloud City locations. Your opponent could, and again here it just says your force drains are +1. So that's everywhere, even non-battleground locations. So you could really spread out on Cloud City and get quite a bit of drain bonus going on. Then it only gets total Battle Destiny +1. Not as big a deal. The Legacy version made each of your draws +1. So when you had things like, other people like Isla Sakura, who adds destinies and things like that, you could certainly get a lot more mileage out of this card. But I think it does certainly help with some QMC decks a bit, just for the force drain potential. And then having aliens be forfeit +1, that's not bad either. Some of those guys, already had pretty good forfeits, and now they can cover. Lando covering 7 now, Lobot 6, Calfowl covering 6, deploying for free. I mean, you really can get a lot of mileage on it. It just sort of makes the deck more efficient and gives it a bigger potential. Ambush here to get some clone troopers. Jedi Mind Tricks, kind of like a projective telepathy. The new Luke we haven't talked about yet. Never deploys to a site opponent occupies, so he kind of has that Emperor game text, although he can move there. So there is that possibility. It deploys -2 to Ach2. Ach2, I don't know how you pronounce that. Once per turn, upload force projection. Doesn't exist yet, so don't go looking for that card. But during battle, may cancel an opponent's just drawn destiny to cause a redraw, and he is completely immune to attrition. So now Lightside gets another completely immune character here, kind of tipping the scales a little bit more in their favor, and really getting away from the standard balance that had been set previously. So we'll see just how much. Now, again, though, the card that gives Mace immunity, Luke couldn't be deployed because it says non-episode 1. Too far. Non-episode 1 Jedi are lost. I know, I went the wrong way. Non-episode 1 Jedi are lost. Luke's episode 7, so yeah. And no lore, so nothing going on there. But good deploy forfeit ratios. Destiny 4. Really think this guy is going to see a bit of play, just in a variety of certain decks and things like that. And, curious to see how people find ways to use them. So, but the card that I overlooked the first time I read the spoiler list and didn't really notice, the Hothmane Power Generators. You look at the text and you're like, okay, energy shield rules in effect. Yeah, move to or from here requires +1 force. Okay, so that takes them longer, cost more for them to move into your base. What's the big deal? The big deal about this particular card here is the site is now a 2-0 instead of a 1-0. And when you're changing starting activations, that can be a very big difference in terms of how games are going to play. So we've already seen EBO can be very viable and very practical. It got a tiny little speed up in the previous set with General Riken, who let your guys move around for free. So it lets you kind of spread out and be able to get the 3 locations and flip and then consolidate, and to get the EBO on the table. And now you're going to get yourself 1 extra force icon right at the beginning. Not surprised to see James Barnes' name on this card. James is a guy who's always sort of loved speeder type decks, so getting that 1 extra force kind of right at the start of the game. EBO's definitely moved up quite a bit here in the last month or 6 months or so, and I would not be surprised to see that deck start to make more appearances in major events. So don't sleep on EBO. Otherwise, you might get beat down from 52. And then the other new cornerstone card here, the new Hyperdrive version. Obviously, a completely new deck type. It's got it's similar in a lot of aspects to what the non-virtual deck does. The text just kind of got cleaned up a little bit in terms of some of the benefits and whatnot. It's going to play a little easier. It's going to get a little bit better activation right off the bat, because you can go get a system and you're not restricted from deploying systems. Usually you had to flip first before you could put that system out. Now, if you want to go get that episode 1 icon system, you can grab the Tatooine system, throw it on the table, start setting up some ships or something there. Maybe run a Tatooine celebration hyperdrive deck, then you're just retrieving all kinds of ways, from occupying the sites and then drawing battle destinies when you flip. And there's something there. There's quite a few different ways this can go. Probably revolving around Episode 1 Jedi, who are going to have some strong game texts and immunities and things like that. So I think this is another deck type we'll probably see a bit more of in the near future. So, and then you've got some other splashable support cards. Another ship who we already had Snap in a previous set, so now he gets his matching ship. Once per turn, use one force to cancel a force drain at another system within 1 parsec. That could definitely come in handy. There's a number of decks that kind of linger around that 5, 6, 7 kind of range, between Naboo and Kashyyyk and Tatooine. And so if you're in the right position and keep moving your ship around, you could find yourself able to just, keep paying 1 to cancel some force drains. And that could definitely come in handy. And then you get some other, you get the new saddle here, which pulls Luke once per turn. If, it looks like it says it says, but if Luke alone here may subtract 2 from opponent's total power during battle at another location. Okay, so if you wanted to just plop Luke down there, he could just subtract 2 from power somewhere else. It's a 2-0, so it's another 2-0 location, and then obviously Luke has an icon, so it would be... Does Luke have an icon? Okay, Luke does have an icon. I wasn't sure if thematically they were going to give Luke an icon or not. Since Luke closed himself off to the Force, maybe he wouldn't have an icon. So, but there's definitely a lot of exciting stuff in this set, and I'm certainly glad that we're going to see a whole bunch of new decks. You got part of the tribe here, which will, help out some alien species type decks or Ewok decks, or because it adds an icon while it's on Endor. I know all of those, most of the Ewoks and things like that all have text that says, their power, deploy, and forfeit and things like that. Not deploy. Their power and forfeit is all related to the number of icons that are at the site. So putting this on the right card, like you put it on like Daughter of Skywalker, who adds an icon, and now this adds an icon, and now suddenly that location is a 4-1 site, and now your Ewoks are all like power 5, and then they got weapons and stuff. So no surprise to see Stephen Fulner's name on that card, because we know Stephen loves Ewoks. That'd be Fungineer, in case you're wondering. You may have played him on GEMP, and you may have played against some Ewoks. So definitely a lot of player cards in this set, so very happy to see what everybody came up with. And like I said, don't start clicking that print button just yet. Let it sit for 24 hours, let everybody read through it, kind of make sure everything is pointed out exactly how it's supposed to be. And then we'll go from there. Another sneaky little thing here too, Boshek, deploy cost may not be increased. So therefore something like Watch Your Step, which says your non-smuggler characters are deployed +6. Well, now Boshek still deploys for 3. So he would be another pilot. He's another character who can draw Destiny by himself, another ability 4 guy to help get around Maul. So Watch Your Step gets a slight little boost in this set. So there's subtle little cards that sneak in here. He can use a force, subtract 1 from opponent's just drawn Destiny, or cancel an attempt to cancel and redraw a Destiny. So when they try and play Sith Fury or Close Call, yeah. You look like you need a force for either part of that text, but, Boshek certainly does get, I think he slots right into most Watch Your Step decks and gives them another viable character. He's got a little immunity here on the ground. He's immune to less than 3, but you can spend 1 to subtract 1, so really he's immune to less than 4. And if they happen to draw less than that and they try and redraw their Destiny, you can just be like, no. So lots of good stuff going on there. We are going to get into a game review here. Very curious to hear from you guys. Obviously there's a few of you watching in chat, so we thank you very much for joining us. Um, very excited about the images. Love to hear what your guys' favorite new cards of the set are. But while we're working on that, we are going to jump into a game review here because that's what this show is all about, right? It's game reviews. So this link was submitted to us a little while ago. Comes to us. I got to move my camera. Stick me over here. I keep it down the other spot when I'm streaming for Hearthstone. CRG submitted this link to us, who is certainly watching in chat, hopefully, so he'll get to watch his game from a third person point of view here. He is going to be playing looks like a Darkside Tatooine CRv deck using Tatooine and Maul Sight, and then he's going to run a couple other locations here. And he's playing against TGE Damon, Tom Damon from the Netherlands. He's definitely a European player. I think he's from the Netherlands, somewhere in that region, who's going to be playing No Idea. We looked at No Idea in a previous show, which was more of a space-heavy build with Moncals and that kind of stuff. I have a feeling that this particular version is going to be a little bit more ground-based, as we see the Insurrection, which makes Unique Rebels ability less than 3, forfeit plus 2. So I'm thinking we're going to see a few more ground rebels in this particular version, characters who are going to have much better deploy forfeit ratios, and really a lot of the spies and things like that will. And then we look at the Darkside deck and what it's trying to do. So we've got this site here. Maul deploys free. If Maul's here and if the trace was correct on table, you force drain plus 2 here. And then I will find them quickly master. Let you get once per game, can take if the trace was correct into hand from reserve deck. So you slap if the trace was correct on the table there. Maul deploys for free. You use this card to get Maul's lightsaber, so you get the double-bladed lightsaber, which you can add 2 to your force drain with, and suddenly you're draining for 4 at a non-battleground. Seems really good and really fast. Obviously, there are shields that kind of stop that. You got Lightside has the simple trick shield, so they'd have to get at least 1 battleground, and then they're kind of, preventing you from being able to just start squeezing out big drains like that. Sometimes we will see people play the Cantina. They'll deploy Maul for free here and then just move him into the Cantina. And then him and his double-bladed lightsaber will drain for 4 at a battleground. But, there's other things that the Trace does in terms of capturing Amidala and stuff like that that may not come into effect in this matchup, but hey, you never know. So obviously we've got start of control phase. You can relocate Maul to the same site as a Jedi. Well, that's probably not going to happen in this game because you can't play Jedi. And Conductor Search lets you get some cards with Door to deploy them. So usually you see Blast Door controls, which cancels Barrier, Narrow Escape, and that kind of stuff. And the Endor Backdoor are the 2 most frequent cards pulled with Conductor Search. I definitely agree, Sater. Jedi Luke does have a really strong image, and so does the Octu site. Yeah, Octu. I'm calling it Octu. I don't know. Someone can correct me later if you've heard the audio book on tape, but yeah, that's what we're calling it. All right, so let's get this game rolling. Obviously, we're going to see a bunch of Mauls. There's that trace card. Let's read what this does. Deploy on. I will find them quickly. Once during each of your deploy phases, you can deploy a Sith probe droid from reserve deck. If Amidala forfeited at the same site as Maul, she's captured. While escorting Amidala, opponent's battle destiny draws are -1, and during your turn, you can use up to 3 force in opponent's force pile. Wow. While Maul escorting Amidala at a non-Tatooine battleground site, opponent's force drains at Tatooine sites are -1, and at the end of every turn, you can shuffle their reserve deck. So if Maul goes off Tatooine and captures her somewhere, like, say, what's this planet here? Yeah, Scarif. If Maul were to capture her there, that would be pretty interesting. So we'll see what CRG wants to do here. If he wants to just try and put the early pressure on and just, you know, jam out, Maul, lightsaber, go. He's not expecting weapons, so he's throwing back both copies of his force fields to get Sonic. He's going to play the Sonic. Go get that. Now he's got that 2-0. He's got his other 2-0. So he's got a very fast activation start here. Getting these 2-0 locations out. Look at Maul lightsaber. He could pull the back door as well and get 2 more force if you wanted to. Yep, and we do see blast door controls in his deck at the same time. And he's going to deploy that trace card. I don't know we'll see too much of the capturing, but yeah, sometimes these decks do run Amidala because she does come in handy canceling Vader's text. And then he's just going to draw back up and kind of reload his hand here since he didn't have to spend any force because Maul was free. And the other card that we did see that he does have in his hand already, which makes this decision certainly a justifiable one, is this Lanada Breed Sacrifice, which kind of works like Ellis and Neighborin, but it's slightly... It doesn't work as good as Ellis and Neighborin, but it works a little bit better than how Ellis and Neighborin work when Insurrection or Imperial Rush Order are out, because you're not, with this card, you're limited to owner's move phase and exterior sites. So you have to move to an exterior from an exterior, and you can only do it during your own move phase. So this one, at least, again, during your move phase, transport any and all of your characters at one site to an exterior or battleground. So they can move from anywhere to either an exterior site or an interior battleground. So you still have the restriction of it being only during your move phase, but at least you have a little bit better options in terms of where you're moving to and from. So that's a big pickup having that early as well, which is why I don't mind him throwing Maul down right now, really trying to put some pressure on him. Forces opponent to deploy some guys here because this is a battleground, so he could just, during his move phase, he could drop 1 or 2 other guys from hand, because he's got 13 force now. So he could drop quite a few characters to this site and then just bring Maul over and then kind of just pile on the core. I love when I get random text messages from numbers I don't recognize. So, alright, and it looks like Damon is going to go to space first. Definitely seems like a good course of action. Going right for the system here. He's got Rogue One, Tantive, and Bodhi, I believe. Yep. So this deck, you would guess, is probably a more ground-heavy mains type deck. And by occupying a battleground, you can pull simple tricks, which cancels the force drains at non-battleground locations. So you certainly have the options here. He sets up in a way that keeps him safe, that also protects a battleground to prevent this drain from happening. And instead what we're going to see is he's going to pull a Sith Probe Droid using the Trace card, which basically says during your move phase, you can use 2 force to relocate a Dark Jedi to same site, and then you put the droid in the used pile. And it's a 5 when it's drawn for Destiny. Usually we see this a lot in like Bring 'Em Before Me. They use this, they send Vader somewhere, capture Luke, and then they use the probe droid to move him into the throne room so they can start dueling and try and win the game. But there are certainly some better uses or some alternate uses of this card, and this seems to work out just fine. Instead of paying 7 to deploy Maul somewhere, you're just going to pay 1 to deploy the droid and 2 to move him. So you save yourself some force, and you possibly could have gotten a drain out. You force your opponent to spend their first turn, deploying a bunch of cards. So misses on a Vader pull. And it looks like he's going to let him revert that. That was awfully nice of him. We'll go to the move phase, and now Maul's just going to move on up to the east side. Move over to the back door. So now you can start draining for 4 at a battleground. Seems reasonable. And he's going to point man to take a peek at what might be in there. Oh, there you go, Emperor Shuttle. He takes Tarkin. Now, looking at his force pile, it looked like he had 2 Tarkins and 1 shuttle in there. So I probably would have taken the shuttle, seeing as you already have the Emperor, and then you'd have a better chance of drawing one of the 2 Tarkins, unless I, missed that, because of course you can't rewind on GEMP reviews. But if I'm not mistaken, there were 2 Tarkins there, and yep, there were 2 Tarkins because he just drew the other one. So that's why I probably personally would have taken the shuttle and then tried to draw one of the 2 Tarkins, and set up something to try and clear out space. But hey, that's just me. Okay, so now this objective flips because he controls 2 Scarab locations. He got the system turn 1, now he's got this other guy down here turn 2. So he loses his ability to pull ships. And now guys don't cost extra, but his spies are all defense value +2 and power +1, and yeah. We see Walkling, so we haven't seen Nightfall yet. Perhaps he missed it. He may have activated it. And then we'll get General Crix. Crix, who can pull some scouts and spies, is going to get Kansaric. Kansaric is that pain in the butt guy who makes everybody deploy for a lot more. Present exterior battleground site with your other scout. Adds 2 to deploy cost of opponents' carriage vehicles and starships to same site. Crix himself is not a scout. Chad Hills is not one either. He's a trooper. He's not a scout. Well, there's a spy. So he'll pick up the Stardust so he can start causing some force loss. And he's got 3 battlegrounds now, so he's going to pull Ultimatum. That'll limit this drain back to being 2. And he saves 1 force. And he will pay to drain for 2. He's got some strong Destiny in there, plus Blast Door controls, which, as we mentioned earlier, cancels Rebel Barrier, Narrow Escape, and Blast the Door Kid, which are 3 pretty solid light side evasion cards. And now we get our buddy Emperor Enforcer Vader, who not only battles for free, he also cancels game text of an opponent's character for ability less than 4. So in this case, that would be Chad here. You could subtract 1 from Weapon Destiny. You could add a Destiny to total power. It's only when it's with a leader. The text really wasn't seeming like it was doing a whole lot right there anyway. But you can do it, so you might as well go ahead and cancel it. And we get Kylo as well. Very strong turn. I like the move. I like the aggression, going early. Your opponent has a very small hand, only down to 3 cards. Most of it's on the table. And you really want to stop their immediate force loss from Stardust. And now he was a little bit harder to hit, but he does get a 9. Oh, he swung at the other guy. Okay. Well, that guy was still toast. Either character had been toast. And he's got to lose a force, and it's going to be a Bacta tank. That's another good card for this deck, especially when your guys deploy so cheap and forfeit for so much. Oh, but a lowly 1 will not crack Cornhorn's immunity. So it looks like Lightside could just end up top decking a couple cards to keep Cornhorn there with the Stardust. Now I know the site says you can't move away. While opponent occupies Stardust and characters on may not move from here. Okay. Well, he does opt to lose Cornhorn instead, even though he was not required to. He could have just lost 3 cards, but he doesn't really have much to back it up with, so. With just his 3-card hand. Oh, and he does get the shuttle. Did he put Tarkin back and got the shuttle? That's an interesting... So, he gets drains of 1 and 1. And he's going to send Kraken down, along with Sabine. Vader can cancel either of their game texts here. I would be canceling Kraken's because he adds the Destiny. And they draw low. That Maul again. It's the problem with the Maul deck, because they run like 4 copies of Maul, and because you want to get them early to put the pressure on them, but then you find yourself drawing them for Destiny for quite a while. So they both draw 1s, which means Darkseid loses the battle, so Sabine's text kicks in and requires 2 force loss. So he pitches the Lana Dobreed card. And loses Vader? He had 1 battle damage. Oh, all immunity attrition is canceled. Okay. I was going to say, hang on a second, I know I'm missing something. Alright. All immunity to attrition was canceled there, so never mind about my earlier statement about Cornhorn being immune. Cornhorn had to die anyway. Okay, that makes a lot more sense in the way everything played out. So, I forgot that text is on that site. Darkseid not going to pay to drain this turn. Instead, they are going to go for big air here with the shuttle package. They certainly have plenty of force to do it with. Now, I can only hold 1 pilot. But he does get 3 battle destiny there, and the shuttle is completely immune to attrition, unless that's canceled too by the system. No, Rogue One's completely immune because it's piloted by a rebel. Oh, there's nothing else going on there. So he can clear out the Tantive, definitely. And maybe possibly if he draws well, cause some overflow. So again, another good aggressive move I definitely like. You definitely want to piece this together. This looks like his only space package. He's got lots of high destinies because it's a mains type deck with emperors and good destiny interrupts and things like that. So he can certainly, the Tantiv's going to cover 8. He's not going to get it all in one shot. You can redraw that with Tarkin because he drew pretty low. Um, don't draw Maul again. Wow, okay. So he's got 17 for total out of 3 Destiny. That's outstanding. Light side's only getting 1 Destiny here, so they draw just enough with that 3. So that they only have to lose 8, which is the Tantive, and it is completely immune otherwise. So meanwhile, over here, now Darkside initiates battle. Lightside's going to try and react with Cal Alder. And the react gets sensed. Now, what Cal Alder does, since he's deploys a react, deploy -1 to same site as a rebel leader. Unless with Luke, opponent must first use 1 force to fire a weapon at same site. He also is a scout. So Kraken being a leader, he deploys -1 there. And then since all of your ability is provided by scouts, you add a Battle Destiny, so you still get the Battle Destiny draw that Kraken's going to get by himself, but you get 2 more power, a little bit extra forfeit, or actually 6 more forfeit in this case. And it would cost him 1 force to swing his weapon. Instead, he pays 2 and cancels the react with the sense, which has been grabbed. And Kylo will get to swing, but we're going to see the text on the objective come into play. Once per turn, place a rebel in your lost pile out of play to cancel a just drawn destiny targeting the ability or defense value of your rebel, or to make a regular move with your spy during your control phase. So in this particular case, he's going to put a rebel out of play, canceling a just drawn destiny that targets the ability or defense value of his rebel. So he's going to try to hope that canceling this destiny keeps Kraken alive. And it does, because he draws low and draws the Probot as his second draw. Now, because he missed, Darkside has to lose a force. And they top deck, okay, Mara's ships. Alright, so we had 2 ships in the deck. Okay. And CRG draws another character for Battle Destiny. Luckily, there's no immunity, so everybody's going to have to die anyway. But no overflow. Even if he had hit him, there wouldn't be any overflow damage. So both guys are just going to clear out again. And now CRG is the one with no hand left and no cards to draw. And his opponent did start the battle plan Draw Their Fire combo. The Draw Their Fire portion of that requires that when light side initiates a battle, for dark side to play any interrupts, they have to first use a force. So no force remaining. So if light side wanted to initiate any battles, especially in space or something like that, dark side would not be able to play any interrupts, particularly something like Gick to get out of some battle damage. And this could be that type of little beatdown situation. Oh, but he drops Cal Alder, who doesn't work with Luke. Unless with Luke, opponent must first use 1 force to fire a weapon at same site. So the preventing Maul from swinging is what Cal Alder would have done, because again, there's no force saved. So Maul wouldn't be able to swing at anybody. But once he puts Luke down so he can swing at Maul, he gives up that bonus text. So Maul will be able to swing back and probably hit both guys, but there's that Lando again. Light side is taking a risk it's a minimal risk because they can't play any interrupts because they have no force, so you don't have to worry about things like sniper or you are beaten or any of that kind of stuff. And there's that Nightfall that he is playing, just hasn't pulled out yet. It's usually a card that you see people try and get, even before they flip. One of the first things that they do is go try to get the Nightfall out to make all their guys deploy a lot cheaper. And now we get a second swing and go after Luke. And Luke will be hit too. Certainly an aggressive play by Damon going after him. Does he have a 5 or something? Nope. So Maul's going to get to live. And now he won't have to pay to drain. Lightside did make sure to get a backup plan here with another guy at this site to get 3 battlegrounds, but I don't think they can leave this rebel scout here hanging out by himself. A rebel trooper recruit, rather. And they are going to move Rogue One away to Tatooine. And they will move that guy out. That's going to flip the objective back, though, to the 0 side, so they lose a lot of their benefits of keeping people from getting hit and having extra defense value and that kind of stuff. He puts the Maul back to get a better card. Normally, I'm not a fan of putting 1 Destiny characters back in your deck, especially when you've been drawing them for Destiny. I don't know that I would have done that there. I mean, obviously, you're trying to find a better card, but I guess the question is do you need anything else right now? I mean, he doesn't have the battlegrounds, so you get a drain of 4 in here and then a drain of 1. So I don't know that you necessarily needed to put that card back. I actually would have, well, he lost it, so I guess that makes sense. It's the card he lost with Maul's lightsaber, so that's fine. But ordinarily you wouldn't do that, kids. Unless you're planning on doing something with that, losing the force from the use pile. That's a good play. That makes sense. But ordinarily you wouldn't want to put a 1 Destiny character back in your deck unless you really had no other choice and you really needed that card. Yep, got it, Dorsch. Thanks. So he's going to spend 6 and he's going to deploy Vader over there at the castle. Move the shuttle over. He can move Vader between here and any battleground site. So he could have moved Vader. He's going to opt to leave him there for now. And now he's going to start tracking around to 5. 8 cards down for those of you tracking at home. And he picks up a couple extra Phantom Menaces. I'm sure he'll start tracking those 7s around pretty soon as well. But both players pretty similar life force counts. They both have about 20 cards down, and Lightside has a few more cards in the lost pile. And now they're causing 2 force loss from Stardust, plus they're draining for 1. He does get to get another location out, so now he's got a couple other Stardust locations. And he'll put this guy down. What does this guy do? When deployed, you can go get throw me another charge or a trooper. Troopers are power minus forfeit -1 here. During any move phase, use 2 force to release an imprisoned captive here. So not a whole lot, except the fact that he's a scout and a trooper, and he lets you go pull troopers like the Endo Commando team here. So you've got quite a bit of power at that site. Not quite enough ability to draw Battle Destiny. TK422 to Mustafar's, yeah. He's not draining there, so unless his plan is to deploy Han there, and then when Vader moves away, then break Han's cover and start draining at the... I mean, certainly could do that, but I don't think that's a good strategy. So glad to see that he did undo that, and you know, CRG did let him take that one back. Oh, he does shuffle his deck though, so no more tracking. Well, he can track the card he just put back on the Phantom Menace he put on the bottom with 4 last turn, which is now 17 cards down, because that's one wouldn't have recycled until after the end of turn. He's got the 3 battlegrounds again, so ultimatum back in effect. So we just have drains of 2 and 1. So they're back to pacing each other on even damage. It's going to be up to Darkside to find a way to get Lightside off of one of these 3 battlegrounds again. For now, they'll just pretend to be content. They can keep chasing him in space, keep moving him back and forth, and then he'll move Vader out as well. You know, he knows obviously that he's got that TK422 in hand, but he's got the answer for that right here in Director Krennic. If with opponent's undercover spy, opponent loses 2 force, it may not be reduced. So instead of draining for 2, or in this case, it's okay. So instead of draining for 2 at this site and potentially having to pay for it if your ship or whatever got shot down, Krennic will just go there and make you lose 2 anyway. So Krennic's a good card. I definitely like him. He's a good counter, especially because Lightside has 3 characters that are automatic undercover spies, with Boosh, TK, and Jin Urso. So I think that was good balanced design, releasing Krennic and Jin kind of around the same time. I think they were the same set, but don't quote me on that. Yep, so there's some good drains, some Stardust lost, and you know, they just kind of keep pacing each other in terms of damage. He does have an Imperial at a related location now, so he doesn't have to pay 1 for the Force Drain anymore. And he does pull the Firepower Shield. Finally, I think he could have done that a turn or 2 ago. Obviously, his opponent probably would have countered with the aim high, and he may not have had any Force saved. But he does pull Firepower here, so he can start retrieving some cards. And that'll happen after the draw action. So it's a wise play. It really hasn't used any shields yet, so I think there was an opportunity to pull that a turn or 2 sooner, but I don't remember offhand whether or not he had any force available that he would have even been able to pay for the retrieval, with his opponent still having an aim high pull available. Oh, now the light side will get the weapons display shield and probably end up losing a force. So they still have the 3 battlegrounds, so it's going to be, looks like it's going to be 2 and 2. TK is going to block that drain for a turn. And Lightside's running low on cards. They're getting outpaced just a little bit. They took 2 big drains of 4 from Maul, plus they've had a few characters get lost along the way. And now Director Krennic here should be the icing on the cake. And they're just going to kind of stack up that site. We look at life force counts now. We're at 15 to 9, and we're kind of back to doing even damage. Darkside's doing 6 a turn, 5 to 6 a turn, depending on where the shuttle is. And I don't believe any of these are drain plus 1s. So I think Lightside's just doing 4. Yeah. 1, 2, and then 2 from Stardust being 4. So Darkside's in the driver's seat here. Just needs to make sure they don't do anything to, give it away, give their opponent a way to climb back into the game. And he is going to play the Force Lightning now to put it on top. I mean, I don't know there's going to be too many battles left in this game that he should be worried about tracking. I probably would have done it on my opponent's turn because you're going to end up top decking cards in this battle. All right, to these drains here, you're losing 4 cards. You're not going to lose all 4 cards from hand. So you're going to end up top decking something, and it's just going to be the Force Lightning that you just put back. But again, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference in this case because where we're at in the game, I don't really see any additional battles really happening. And there's one of those other undercover spies that we talked about. It's going to block that drain for a little bit. Damon's going to keep this one close, but I think he's going to get just slightly edged out. And again, Bosch triggers firepower. I think pacing it out right now, it's probably going to be like 5 or 6 for CRG. So if this was a match play thing, you'd feel real comfortable about that. All right, I lost, but at least I lost by a small amount. And that's what you should be striving for. I mean, obviously he's trying to win the game, but if you're going to lose the game, at least try and, keep it as close as you can. And then you can work on fine-tuning some things, possibly should you play this matchup again. There's just that early turn, that early pressure. He committed to space, and then he went to the ground right away instead of possibly reloading his hand. It might have been worth taking turn 2 and just, drawing a few cards. So he didn't, because he only had like a 3-card hand at the end of turn 2, and that kind of gave the dark side a little bit more free reign to do what they need it to do and want it to do and kind of dictate the pace of the game. And if Damon had a few more cards in hand, might not have felt quite as comfortable with the moves that he made when he did. But it looks like we're in the end stages here where we're just going to get, nobody's really going to battle or anything like that. It's just going to be, drain, go, ping, Krennic, drain. So light side's doing 4 damage a turn. Dark side is doing 2 from Krennic and 1 to 2 from their drains. So they're both about even in terms of card loss. Decree is now available out. He finally found Decree, so that'll reduce the 2 to 1. So now light side's down to doing 3, dark side's doing 3, sometimes they're doing 4, so depending on which system they're at. Okay. Perhaps they are going to stick around now and block this. He's going to Jedi Lev to get a character back into hand. He pays 4, he gets Jinner, so. Now you're thinking to yourself, what does he need another undercover spy for? But what he needs and what he'll take another spy for is to go to one of these 2-0 locations and start draining to increase his damage. It might be 1 or 2 turns too late. I think he's... Wow, okay, so there's 3 5s in there, so he's going to draw 15 for Battle Destiny. That'll give him 19 total power. He's got Wedge here, but yeah, he could cancel one of them, so he'll have 10 which will give them 14. Light side's only drawing 1 destiny, so they'd have to draw 6 just to tie. And if that's... Oh, he's top decked some cards since then, so I'm not sure what's on top of Damon's reserve deck. Not that it really matters. Like I said, he needs a 6 to tie, and there probably aren't really any 6s in this deck. So he's at least going to have to lose something. I stand corrected. There is a 6 in his deck. It's Double Agent, which is actually a pretty useful card since many of your guys are spies. Having a 6 handy that gets rid of spies. And of course he draws a Dark Time afterwards. Would have loved to have had that a minute ago to subtract 1. And he'll save a force. 4 long back and Emperor. Yep. They're both down to about, under 10 cards total. At least it will be after this turn of drains. But certainly, it started out pretty interactive, and then it got to the point where they both just kind of moved away from each other and just kind of, got into a bit of a staring contest. Just trying to see who could outpace the other one, and it looks like, Dark Side just did just a tad more damage early on. But that Sith Probe Droid just might come in handy here. You could pick up Vader and move Vader from the beach. Lose 2 to Krennic. No drain in space. No drain on the ground. It's definitely going to be close. He mitigated just enough that last turn, and not moving away. Now that ship's completely immune to attrition and he's got more power on it, they're going to end up just staring at each other for a little bit in space, as long as Dark Side has multiple destinies available to draw. Yep, cancel Jin's text, so Jin wouldn't get a battle destiny if they were to battle. But again, kind of running low on cards on both sides of the table here. And it's going to be very, very close. But I still think CRG is just going to sneak this one out. And it's a 3. 3 does not do him very good in space. He's going to on the edge. Wow. At least he targeted Jin. So when he plays the Dark Time from hand to subtract 1, Jin dies and doesn't get beat up by Vader. So kudos to that. If it worked, great. If it didn't work, well, she probably would have covered the difference, because she's, her plus her forfeit is good for 9. But yeah, they're both out of cards. Damon's going to concede right there, but just kind of doing the math, 4, 5, 6 to 4. Excuse me. So we're rolling into Dark Side's turn here. They'd cause 2 force loss. A battle would take place. Some of these guys may or may not get forfeited. You flip back over to the other side of it. He'd only have 2 cards left. Light side would cause 1, 2, 3 force loss, taking him down to 3 cards. But that would pretty much be about it, unless they wanted to only while he's undercover. So he could. Yeah, it costs. He can only be. TK can only break cover during your move phase by paying 3/4. Ouch. That's pricey. I was gonna say if you could break TK's cover, and then like, move somebody else, a couple guys over or something like that. But that's or just break TK's cover and move away. But that doesn't really help either. So yeah. So TK ends up not being able to do much else, and it looks like Darkseid would have snuck out a win by about 3. So, thanks to CRG for submitting the game link. Always good to see, different aspects. We haven't really reviewed a scout version. This wasn't really like, it was a scout spy kind of version. Nightfall not hitting the table probably influenced things a little bit. And obviously the early pressure from Maul sort of dictated what Lightside had to do. So in terms of doing that, and that early pressure could have been what missed them, made them have to pay to deploy and not spend the force on pulling stuff. So great game by both players. Thanks for submitting the link. We always appreciate that. Thank you guys very much for watching tonight's show. Glad to have you all in here. Hope you enjoy set 10. Be sure and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a Twitch Prime account, we'd love to have your subscription. Make sure you just renew that monthly. There's that big purple button up there at the top of the Twitch page that says subscribe. The PC definitely appreciates your support so we can keep bringing you more and more content like this. There's also that little heart right there. If you click that, that just means you're following us. We like followers too. That lets you'll get just email updates, notifications that when we go live with our streams that we're streaming. So if you just happen to not be near a computer or don't know what's going on, or you miss a Facebook post or something like that, by following us, you can find out updates regarding that as well. And the same holds true for my personal YouTube page, which is where all my videos end up. So if you miss it on the Twitch stream, it does get uploaded to YouTube, and you can find it there. And I've just started doing, I have set up my own Twitch page as well, where I will be doing some live game streams. Once set 10 is up and running on GEMP, we'll test out a few new decks and things like that, and do some streams for those. Definitely see you guys back here next Monday night. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night.